Hello. Welcome to episode 4 of Stay Onside with Dylan and Logan. We have Game 7 updates recorded just after the win. We have some fun pop culture things and a few surprise twists for today's episode involving Game 7. So
hmm
let's kick it off. Dylan, how we doing? How we holding up after Game 7?
I'm still not down from the high. Like it's been what, an hour and a half maybe. I lost like all sense of time, so I don't know how long it's been because I've just that was something else. Like I didn't watch until 15 about 15 minutes left in overtime, and so I have no idea what anything looked like, but I was following along via radio. Oh my god!
You got more of it than I did.
Yeah.
I had so I've live tweeted every game in this series. And did some of the start reminders through the playoffs. Wasn't able to do it for the last couple, just with stuff going on. The partner has come back from banishment in the basement, so that helps. But I had, unfortunately, an appointment for my knee today at like 1:30 my time, which was 30 minutes after the start of the game. And I just looked at the schedule last night when they released the start time, and I went, really,
Yeah.
really, 1 p.m. my time. Okay, so I went into the appointment. The last thing I saw on my phone was 2 to 1, and you had already started texting me, and one of my friends had also started texting me. And I think I told my friend, like, keep sending me updates so that when I get out of acupuncture, I can like look and see. And as soon as she lets me up off the table after an hour and a half, I dive for my phone. And I'm like, what's going on? Is it over? And sat there in the car, like on the sidewalk for about 15 minutes, just seeing updates come through while fielding answers and doing phone calls for a CAT scan that I have to have done this weekend on my knee. And I saw that it was going to overtime, and I just went, do I sit here in the hot car for another like 30 minutes potentially and watch overtime, or do I drive home and just push out the anxiety? And I went to drive home. Stop for some bubble tea and crepes on the way home, which helped.
Yeah.
I was inhaling a banana Nutella crepe when I got the overtime like goal notification, but I have no idea what happened in this game. Just
Yeah. Like because I was at work, which kind of going back to what you said with your appointment. I saw the schedule last night. It's like, oh yeah, it's gonna be at like 3 p.m. my time, and I'm like, I work from 9 to 6. So if this game ends in regulation, I'm not gonna see any of it. So like I was gonna, yeah, like I said, I worked still 6. It was about 5:40 when the third period ended. So I'm like, I told my
mm,
coworker, I go, I'm leaving at 7 till, because 7 till is like the earliest we can leave without getting penalized. So I go, I'm
mhm.
leaving at 53 today. Like, there's no question about this. So I got home, or I was listening to the game on the radio, and the third period was just starting, and I got home with about 16, 15 minutes left, and I managed to get it go to my room during a stoppage, and then right as I look down at my phone, I see Elliot Friedman tweet, Kiviranta hat trick. Wow. I go running back to my dad's office, and I tell him, I know it's about to happen, but I want to see it. So, yeah. Yeah, I was
I just when I saw the notification, I just stared at my phone and like out loud, waiting for, like the bubble tea to finish. I just went, what?
yeah.
Like, out loud. Like, what's happening?
Yeah, so I showed sort of earlier, so I have these earbuds that, for those of you who are listening, they're like small little gray earbuds, like they're the wireless ones that you like just stick in your ear. So I was putting it
They
in.
almost look like earplugs. Yeah.
Yeah. So like I brought them after my lunch break after work, and I'm like, okay, I don't care what my manager says, what anybody else says. I'm putting one one of my ears, and then putting my headset for my radio on the other, and listen to basically the entire game. So like I said, I had more of a, what do you want to call it, awareness of what was going on than you did. So yeah,
Yeah, I
that
I almost contemplated like asking my acupuncturist, who is not a sports person, and but like happily lives vicariously through my updates of like what goes on in the world of sporting. She loves it. I almost contemplated asking her like, can you just put the radio broadcast on my like the app's open, like here, just hit play when you leave the room and let me to listen to it. And then I thought, Game 7 against my work team and my fun team. and I'm face down with 100 needles, like from head to toe, for my knee and for like the migraine and like screen sensitivity I've been dealing with. And I just thought that is a recipe for disaster.
Yeah.
Just, because knowing me, like if they scored, if any of them scored, I'd be like, woohoo! I'd like clench up and be moving and then go, right, right, needles everywhere.
Right. Yeah. Not the
That
best idea.
did not seem good.
Yeah. Yeah. Like the whole
Yeah.
first period, like you said, 3 minutes of a game starts. So that would have been about sort of through the end of the first. So yeah, that whole. I think my dad's the first. Wasn't watching again, but when I was listening there, the first probably period was probably mostly in the Star Zone. So I was listening to him like, God, this is gonna be like a disaster. It's gonna be a repeat of like last year. It was what 7-1 Blues was the final. I think it was last year. I'm
Double
like, no,
overtime.
that was 2 years ago or 3 years ago.
Because they didn't, the first season I was covering the Stars with SB Nation, they didn't make the playoffs. And last year, I remember saying it's the first time I get to cover them in the playoffs. So it had to be more than 2 seasons. So probably three,
Yeah, it was
I
three
think.
seasons ago, and yeah, I was at Game 7 that year. Was it Game? Can't remember.
No.
I'm just losing. Like I said, I'm losing all sense of time. But I think it was like Game 7. I was like, everybody was like amped up, all ready to go, and then next thing you see the Blues go boom, 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 and then we're like sitting there with like they won't come back from this. So I was sitting there listening to it. I'm like, oh God, this is gonna be like Game 7 3 years ago all over again. And I was ready for disappointment, and then I got an update, and then it said they were tied, and then the Avs went up 2-1. I'm like, great, we're gonna lose by like 1 goal again in a really close game, aren't we? And then
It's a grudge match at that point.
yeah, and then they were just
Yeah.
trading blows left and right, and then it goes 2-2, and then it goes 3-2, and at
Mhm.
3-2, I was like, I want to say it was midway through the third, if I remember
Mhm.
right, and I'm sitting there like, so I work at a retail store, and like in our back room, obviously no customers can see us, so I'm sitting back there trying to process like orders and online stuff that we have to do, and I'm sitting there with one of my coworkers, and I'm showing him my hand. I'm like, I'm literally like shaking, and then you can like visibly see my hand shaking, and like it's 3-2 right now. Like I'm gonna lose it, and then I see him tie it 3-3. I'm like, so I'm sitting back there listening to the game, and then I keep feeling my watch go off because it's an Apple Watch, so it like buzzes. So I feel
Right.
that. I'm like, okay, I'm trying so hard not to look down at it, and the next thing I know, I hear Razor, or since I had the local radio on, I hear was it Josh? He said they scored, and then I just let out this loud yes, like really loud, and then I like fist pump, and then I go let's go, and then my friend coworker goes, they scored. I'm like, yeah, and I was amped, and then
Oh my God, that's amazing.
yeah. And then I heard, I was walking up towards the front, and so like our little entrance area, it has like two little hallways that go off to the sides.
Mhm.
They both have like our online order stuff, so I go to the right to like put something on a bike that was up there, and then I hear someone scored, and then I like started fist bumping for a minute, and then it was the 4-3 Avalanche goal. I'm like, no, this was like with what 3.5 minutes left. I'm like, no, I'm like not like this, and then not 10 seconds later.
That was when I
Yeah.
got to my phone after acupuncture, and I was like, they're doing the thing.
Yeah. I'm like,
They're down 5 players, including 2 goalies and their captain, and they're about to do the thing.
yeah.
I thought I was going to like have a heart attack sitting in my car.
Yeah. But yeah. And then not 10 seconds later in there, I hear Kevin Ronta score, and I'm just like, no freaking way. Like, and I
Right.
texted, who is it? I don't remember if I texted you or one of my other friends. I just go, this game is insane. Or like,
Yeah.
yeah.
There was a lot of all caps yelling in our messages.
Yeah. Yeah. So then at that point, it was about half hour before I was supposed to leave, and then like get back full circle. I go, yeah, I'm leaving early. I don't care. So, but yeah, that was just wild.
I have
Like,
not checked yet to see if I've been banned/kicked out of the Twitter Avs like group chat that I'm in.
mhm.
I've been getting like some serious grief from all of my friends who are Avs fans and know that I am also an Avs fan, and they're giving me grief because I'm the only Dallas Stars fan in their life, right?
Mhm.
And yeah, so I have not checked the group chat to see just how bad it is. I might have been banned. We're not entirely sure. So I like muted Twitter notifications to like do like deliver quietly today just because I was getting so much and didn't want it constantly buzzing. And yeah, no, so I haven't seen if anything has changed, but definite moment of just sorry, I'm so sorry.
Yeah, yeah. It was
Yeah,
funny.
I predicted Stars would lose in, I think it was 7 because they were riding such a heater coming out of the Calgary series, and I figured that some of that would carry over and push it further into the numbers.
Mhm.
I did not see it going up 3-1 and definitely did not see this ending coming. That when they announced it's game 7's going to overtime, what I just said in the car was not St. Louis
Yeah,
again, not double overtime.
yeah,
No.
yeah. It was funny. I was thinking earlier today. I was like, I want to say it was about 11 or noon, something like that. I go, this beard is not being getting cut today. Like, because I've been growing this since the start of the playoffs. I'm like, I am not trimming my beard today. This is not happening. And yeah, so it's still gonna keep growing. So we'll see how long it gets. Hopefully, I can get 2 months, 2.5 months out of this thing. So we'll see.
Like you said, you were playing me the video, the audio from the video of Kivaranta in the locker room saying, "We're not going home today."
Yeah, it's the way he said it. He's like, we're not going home today. And he like, said it so confidently. It was hilarious. Uh, just in that
It's like
broken English he has.
just yeah, and in like that just really like happy, like chill level. And I'm like, you just scored a hat trick in game 7. Like, how are
Yeah,
you not incoherent, just like screaming like the rest of us?
yeah, yeah,
Fun fact, he is the 7th player ever to have a hat trick in game 7 and is the first rookie to do so. So,
yeah,
Kivaranta, remember the name.
yeah,
He's yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, it's like watching him. He played 11 seasons, or 11 seasons, 11 games in the regular season for Dallas when they brought him up from the AHL team. And he had a -1 rating. He had 1 goal, didn't really have much on the score sheet, but having watched those games, he had some really good moments of creating plays, setting up perfect passes, of doing the work that needed to be done to get the Stars where they needed to be. And it was just clear that, like, young kid, it's, his first real time up in the NHL and trying to get your legs under you. It's going to take an adjustment. No one's Connor McDavid who comes out in the first game and like shatters records. Um, and then watching him in this playoffs, I think, what is it, 1 or 2 games he was in before this, it's like he's really kind of, I think probably being in the bubble with all of those older, more experienced players is rubbing off on him because he's getting a little bit more time to see the rhythm of what an NHL team looks like, outside of the ice, and what the playoffs look like without just being surrounded by a team that with a lot of vets who have been through the playoffs is a good thing for a rookie like that who is
Mhm.
24 and 5'10" and takes on this tall, loaded Avalanche team and somehow manages to not get flattened by them, but then also get a hat trick on their third string goaltender. Like,
Yeah,
just the Avalanche had to ride Hutchinson in those games because both their starter and their backup in the tandem were out. Like, I just I, the
yeah,
injury bug for the Avalanche in this series was so painful to
yeah. And like, I
watch.
don't think you take anything away from the Stars though for that, because the Stars have their number one goalie out, and they had Andrew Cogliano. They had Stephen Johns, who was when he was playing was a big part of the defense. Like he came back, and you could just tell something was different. They were more stout, and so the Stars had their set of injuries too. But obviously, the Avalanche had more, I guess, impact injuries because, like we were saying earlier, you see the drop off from Landeskog to Shelton Dries is massive compared to Andrew Cogliano to Joel Kiviranta. Like, there's much more of a gap there. So you have a captain to an AHLer compared to a third line like grinder compared to a guy with a lot of energy from the AHL. So
Right.
yeah.
Yeah, it was really interesting to see the choices that the Avalanche made as they started losing guys to injury, starting with, Grubauer and Johnson in game 1 of and I think I've been telling you and a couple of other people, I watched Francouz in the back end of the regular season because Grubauer was injured during the Stadium Series game. I was actually there, and then watching him get injured in Game 1 against Dallas, I just shuddered and went, "God, it's the same thing. It's the same movement all over again." Um, and then for the rest of that homestand that I was there, Francouz was just amazing in the net. This kid didn't blink, right? And he had some really good games towards the end of the season. I mean, he shut the Stars out 4-0 in the round robin, right? He's good for it, but there's only so much you can do when a team like Dallas are riding a heater and just like racking up goals like they're like pool, like balls, before setting them all and sinking them at once.
Hmm.
Just it was painful to watch that. And then, clearly he got injured and they had to put in Michael Hutchinson, which was a choice.
Yeah.
I would have put in uh Miska, the other the fourth goalie
Hmm.
of the four that they brought in. I would have put because he was their part of their tandem with their AHL team with Francouz, and then really stepped up this year when Francouz was called up full time, and he's very good. He's young. He hasn't really played an NHL game. The playoffs are his first, like toe in the water, but I think if I remember correctly, his numbers were a heck of a lot better than Hutchinson's. And so for Bednar to ride him in 3 games, I mean, Hutchinson got the job done because he just constantly kept freezing the puck. He
Hmm.
wasn't trying to like send it out for like the defense to carry back out. He was just glove down, freezing it every time it came near him. And I think it was partly him recognizing I can't compete with the caliber of this stuff coming my way. The only hope I have to keep the Stars from creating that crush on top of me that got goals done against Francouz, the only hope I have is to just smack it down and hold it.
Hmm.
Smart call on his part, frustrating for the Stars. But the most interesting thing was seeing that there was like this force field around Hutchinson, especially in that first game he had where the Stars lost, right? Game 5, where they had, what was it, like 8 shots on goal through something like 2 periods on this third string, goaltender whose numbers are not great. And we're all just sitting here going, how did this team that like had goals coming out of their ears suddenly not be able to even get the puck near this guy? It was just so interesting to see that happen and go, Stars, what you
Yeah,
doing?
because I
Do
think it
you want to
was
remember how to score?
I think it was for the first like 18 and a half minutes, the Stars had like I think you said 8 shots and the Avs had none. So they held the Avs to 0 shots in
No,
18 and a half minutes. Or was that?
it was the Avs had as many goals as Dallas had shots by the end of the first period because the Avalanche, it was the game where Bishop started. So it was
Mhm.
4-0 at the end of the first. And the Stars had 4 shots, which they updated in the intermission. There was a fifth shot. So it was 5 shots to, I want to say it was like upwards of 10 for the Avalanche. But it was that weird moment of as many shots as there were goals.
Mhm.
Yikes.
Yeah.
And that's what worries me about going into the Western Conference final is, is Bonus going to try to get Ben Bishop to go in net again when, that, what was it? They pulled him midway through the first? That first 10 minutes, he was not playing like himself. Like that was not Ben Bishop in net. That was one of the Space
Mhm.
Jam aliens just taking over his body. That was not Ben
Yeah.
Bishop. I and like half of those shots are easy ones to block. So it makes me wonder if you like rushed back from something to go in net on a game that they were hoping to give, who'd open the night off. And yet, eh, look how it went.
Yeah, because I missed pretty much. I had the game on, I think, on a different screen for Game 5. Um, so I was what was it? I had Twitter updates on, but I didn't like have the game like on my TV. And then I got to the point where I could like watch the game, and I'm just like, yeah, this isn't worth it. So I just like had it on the other screen, and I was like, whatever, I'll just keep it on. Didn't
Lucky
really pay
you,
much
at
attention.
least you got to turn it off. I could not.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't pay much attention to it, but I at least had it on another screen. So it was weird that like most of the middle part of the series, like 4, 5, 6, 4, 5, and 6, I didn't watch much of. So
Ah,
I mean, I couldn't really see what the Stars weren't doing well. I could just see what I was getting on Twitter because now during Game 6, I watched the first 2 periods, and then it was the day after my birthday. So my friend asked to see if I wanted to go on a drive, and I just had a really crappy day at work, so I decided to go out, and we drove for like 2.5 hours. So like I missed the entire last period because I had my phone on silent and like do not disturb mode. So, but yeah, I didn't.
And then afterwards, me texting you, it's a good thing you missed it because that game was just a mess. It
Yeah,
was, as one of my friends says, 7 messes in a trench coat.
yeah, yeah. Because
Yeah.
I checked it afterwards. No, I checked it the day after because I didn't check the score. Like I don't think I checked it that night. I looked the next day and it said 4-1. I'm like, oh god. I'm like, what happened? So, yeah,
Yeah, because I kind of like vague texted you of like, well, that was something. That was
yeah,
not a hockey game. That was something. And then you looked at the score the next morning and just texted me like, what the hell? And I'm like, yeah, mood.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah, this was a wild. It also feels like I definitely feel know the feeling of losing track of time. It feels like this series has been an eternity, but also like a wild like fever dream of like 48 hours. And I think part of that was, the last 12 days I have not left the house because of the quarantine. When my partner had to isolate in the other part of the house, I had to isolate in the house as well and not go anywhere, to like my appointments for my knee and stuff, which I have 3 to 4 a week. So to suddenly go from like having a cadence of like what day it is and when the games are happening to these long stretches of nothing broken up by a hockey game here, and then it just flowed into another.
yeah,
Just sitting there going, I don't know what's happening anymore. Help.
yeah. It was funny. What was it after game 4 on Monday? No, game. I'm losing all. I'm losing all track of
It's
the days.
like
But after,
games 4 and 5 were back to back.
right.
So 4 was Sunday, 5 was Monday.
Hmm.
Yes.
Yeah. So after game 4, I'm like, okay, we're up 3-1. I'm like, I wasn't confident by any means, but I'm like, I was sitting there. I'm like going into Monday. I'm like, okay, my birthday's on Tuesday. It would be great if I don't have to worry about it. I don't have to worry about another game. And sure enough, the Stars go, oh yeah, nope, sorry, you're gonna have to worry about it on Wednesday. So
The stars, as fans like
yeah,
to say.
yeah, because I mean, even Wednesday, I was like, okay, it's still 3-2. Like we still have the upper hand, and yeah, that's why I got so nervous coming in today, and it was really weird. Like during game today, or going to overtime, I texted one of my other friends. I go, I'm way more nervous than I was last year. I don't know what it was. Like the Blues, I think were a better team at that time than I realized. But like going into it, I was like, okay, we're playing really well. Like we have a very good chance to beat them. Whereas this one, it's like the Avalanche are still a good, really, really good team. So they can, with one shot, they can easily beat us. Like I don't know what it was last year, but I just had a lot more confidence going into last year.
And Dallas had smacked Nashville around pretty hard. It was a hard fought series in the first round, but they had smacked Nashville around in that first series. And it was a Nashville team, because they did rebuilding in the offseason. So it was still the cup run of 2017 roster for the most part of guys who were, one game away from winning the Stanley Cup instead of the Penguins. So we took a Stanley Cup roster, Stanley Cup finalist roster for a ride, and that was quite interesting because they'd started struggling by that point, but not enough to be a problem until they crashed out in the first round because of us. So I think that gave us some confidence. And people kept expecting St. Louis to just collapse in the playoffs because they'd had that late half season surge, right? And had played awful for the first 4 months before that. And it really, I think we almost like kind of overshot the confidence meter with the St. Louis uh, series. I remember live tweeting Game 7 double overtime. Just I still have nightmares about that game. So we pre-pandemic era, we had, a bunch of our friends, I think it was like a weekend, and we were all gonna go out to like this like microbrew place, get some really good food, do like beer tasting flights, try out the new summer stuff that was coming out. And I told my partner, go, meet them there. I'll come when the game's done because they just went into the break before the first overtime. And one of our friends was driving past our house to go meet them in town. And so he stopped in to watch. the first overtime with me so that I could catch a ride with him. And then it went to double OT, and he just looked at me in the, like, commercial break between the 2, and he's like, "Do you want me here?" And I said, "No. Go away so I can die in peace."
Yeah.
And he just looked at me, he's like, "If it weren't for the fact that you don't drink, I'd be pouring you a very large glass of scotch right now." And I'm like,
Yeah.
"I need one." And then double OT, and that shot happened, and I just once the final tweets I put out were done, I closed my laptop and just tipped. I was sitting on the floor. I just tipped forward until my face hit the carpet and then just let out this like dying wail noise. Charlie like came skittering over from the couch and like pawed at my arm like, "Mom, what's going on?" Just trying to explain to her. We'd had her almost a year by that point. So I was trying to explain this is what happens in hockey sometimes. Mom's really sad. So, yeah. Although it was nice to be able to say we only lost to the Stanley Cup champions, but there's something that still stings in that statement.
Yeah.
I am curious to see, depending on what happens with this Vegas Vancouver game that I believe just started
Mhm.
as we're recording. I'm curious to see who comes out of that because if it's Vegas and they ride the goaltending heater that they've been on, we might it might end up being another battle of the goaltenders. Like, can can Hudobin sustain the offensive pressure from Vegas, which can be a lot when it wants to be, or is our defense going to be able to shut them down? And then it's just a battle of Laner and Fleury versus Hudobin, right?
Yeah. I think
So
on the other side, though, you look at Vancouver and you see what Thatcher Demko's been able to do. I think what he had like a 48 save game
right,
last game. I mean, and he's
yeah,
been just wild, like at least a series because Vegas was in the same spot we were. They were up 3-1, and then here we are right now. I have it up on my other screen, like as we're recording. It's
yeah.
game
Has
seven.
the
So
game started yet, or is
yeah,
it still?
it's
So
about
what's the?
10 minutes into the first. So it's about halfway through the first. The shots are like 7-1 Vegas right now. So, but yeah, it's gonna be interesting
That's
to
like
see.
game 5 with the Stars of
Hmm.
just 4 goals, 4 shots.
Yeah, I mean,
And the forwards in Vancouver, I think people slept on Vancouver in the playoffs, right? Because they kind of came out roaring, and everyone kind of sat up and went, "Oh, the rebuild mostly worked, and they're clicking. Dang!" And Quinn Hughes has just been like lights out good,
mhm.
just scary good on the ice. So if we end up facing them, it's going to be Miro versus Quinn, essentially, of like, the young stars who are leading, the points race in the postseason right now.
Mhm.
I am very sad, however, Nathan McKinnon fell short by 1 game of a Gretzky record that has yet to be broken.
Yeah.
So that is my among several regrets as an Avs fan. That is my one regret was he was this close to breaking one of Gretzky's records. And Gretzky had said this morning in an interview he really hoped McKinnon would be able to. He wanted to see that record, kind of handed off to someone new.
Mhm.
So
Yeah.
close.
I was curious about that
But
record though, if
yeah.
it counted like the prelim games that they played, or if it's like just purely
Mm,
the knockout rounds. Because I mean, with all
I
due
think
respect to McKinnon, he's an amazing player, but like
yeah.
you sit there and you look at some of these stats and you go, how skewed are they compared to the rest of them? I mean, not like I said, not to knock anybody, but like you look at it and you have more available games to rack up these points compared to
Mhm.
what it used to be. 'Cause I think,
Right. Yeah. And this is such a different playoff series. And I think they classified the round robin and the play-in rounds as the playoffs, but yeah, it remains to be seen if they decide to count the round robin games for the top four in their postseason metrics. But
mhm,
the the one comforting thought for Avalanche fans, if there are any watching this, I hope so, if because of my followers, the one comforting thing is that this Colorado roster was one of the most powerful rosters this season. And almost everybody had them as the Stanley Cup winner heading into the postseason. And then in the postseason, there were out of, I think it was, what was it, like 40 plus predictions from NHL writers around North America and from different publications. Only 3 picked Dallas to get out of this alive.
Hmm.
It's just everyone thought. I mean, this this Colorado team has Stanley Cup written all over it, and they're young. And if they get these five guys back from injury, hopefully in time for next season, unless it's something far more serious than what we could see, this team is going to be a contender for quite a few years now. And I mean, they have Nathan McKinnon, who makes the other team cower in fear. At least I would if I were against him. I would
Hmm.
just literally skate to one side, just be like, please go on,
Yeah,
don't hurt me.
yeah. It's like NBC was like oozing and drilling all over him, which I got annoyed with a little bit at some points, but like I think someone else said, with all due respect, he's an amazing player. I think I just got a little annoyed with how much NBC was just over the top about it. But I mean,
The
McKinnon is a game
fawning
changer.
They were like fawning over him hard, of like,
Hmm.
just it was like all they could talk about in the game. And it's part of the reason that I take umbrage with NBC broadcasting the games. It's just Pierre Maguire is always there, and I
Hmm.
just don't like Pierre Maguire. And clearly they've had analysts say some horrible things, but also just the guys calling the commentary are so outdated. And some of them are decently close in age to Razor for the Stars, but Razor is so much better.
Hmm.
He and I think the only difference is just, I guess, the maybe that emotional connection of, it's the Stars broadcaster, not NBC.
Hmm.
Um, so it was really like teeth grinding to have to listen to the NBC guys for these games and go, yes, I love McKinnon. This is my fun team. I love watching him score really pretty goals. But guys, you have a backup goaltender for the Stars doing incredible things. Guys, you have Kale McCarr doing these amazing things. You could drool over him a little bit more.
Hmm.
Like, come on, we all remember McCarr last season, first shift, first shot, first goal, first NHL game, first postseason game.
Yeah,
Like, let's like that more.
yeah.
No, Nathan McKinnon 24/7. And you could just like you just know Nathan McKinnon's ears were like burning, right? Because he does not like doing media stuff. So he was just like, please talk about literally anyone else on my bench.
Yeah, because it's like going back to Razor, what you're saying. Like, yes, his job is to talk about the Stars, but he will give credit where credit is due, and he'll talk about players on the other team who are like, oh, so and so's like a game changer, or so and so's like doing amazing things. Heroes had a great season, and he'll he'll put credit where credit's supposed to be put. Whereas the
Hmm.
national people, they don't see these teams as closely as we do, and they
Hmm.
don't understand like all the little storylines, which I guess that's what you get when you see the national broadcasts is they don't understand what
I
players'
mean,
roles
that
are to an extent.
that excuse for NBC only works so far because like Razor and Josh clearly know the central teams inside and out
Hmm.
because the Stars play them the most. But they also pay close attention to the other teams, in the league so that when it comes time to call the games, they have those same storylines that they can call to and talk about, this player had, it was the Valnichushkin last season of 0 goals, blah, blah, blah. And he's done an incredible thing on this new team with scoring goals. It's nice, and especially Razor as a former player going, it's nice to see when players do something cool, even if they're not on your team, because
Hmm.
it's a sport that we all love. And it's fun when the guys are having fun. So, having it kind of reminds me of like baseball commentary of like in baseball commentary, you have time to set up the story and talk about the plot lines of the game of who grew up playing with who in college and who did this incredible record because they grew up idolizing like Ted Williams and wanted to break Ted Williams record, right? Like they deep dive on this stuff because they need to because of the length of the game. And Razor and Josh remind me of that in a good way of fitting those like human interest but hockey interest pieces into
Hmm.
their commentary, without hyper focusing on one person or one theme. It's the thing of like, here's something fun and cool Stars fans should know, even if it's not from our team. It's this guy's doing something really incredible, and let's just appreciate that without letting the rivalry get in the way for a minute.
Hmm.
And that's why I just, until the day I die, I love Josh and Razor.
Hmm.
And the only other broadcasting team I've ever heard that same level of like knowledge and enthusiasm and passion, for their team, and then for others is the Colorado broadcasting team. Um, with Kyle Keefe and Peter McNabb for the TV, and then Connor McGahee for the radio. They're just awesome. Um, they do the same thing of just totally. One of my favorite things is when the Avs get like a really incredible goal, they'll go to the camera that's in the recording studio, the booth, and you see like Kiefer just get to his feet, and he's like like lunging up and down, like yes, as he's perfectly calling this moment, but he's like just like frantic moving around, right?
Hmm.
And McNabb's just watching him, like really, it's really funny.
Yeah, it's kind of like
Yeah,
the same thing here. Growing up listening to Ralph Strangis and Razor, they were my absolute favorite growing up. Like I couldn't hear anybody on Stars broadcast other than Ralph Strangis. Like he's, I don't know, he seems other when you listen to him and how he talks and how he describes everything. He just seems otherworldly almost. Like not to put him on
he
that high of a
was.
pedestal. So, but
I mean, they broke the mold with him when it comes to
mhm.
broadcasting, and that's my regret as a Stars fan. Especially watching remote, because I have to rely on the broadcasting for that. Is I became a Stars fan, I think, was it 1 or 2 seasons before he passed? It was because I remember it was like I think my first season writing about Dallas was the season after he had passed.
Or
So I'd
you
had a
mean
couple of seasons.
you mean
Yeah,
oh, who's it? No, that was Dave Strader. You mean? Yeah, because Strangis is still around.
that's right.
Yeah.
It's Listen,
Yeah.
man, I had a lot of needles in my shoulders today.
I was like, hold on, I
Hat
gotta.
trick scrambled my brain,
Yeah,
like
I was
what's
like,
left of it.
I'm like, I gotta stop this before it goes too far. But yeah, yeah, but
But
yeah, I think it's what you're saying though.
point aside,
Yeah,
not hearing his calls, it's like he was good.
yeah.
They both were. And it's something I wish they would change with playoff hockey is don't get the NHL and NBC guys to do it. Like keep them in the studio, let them do the intermission stuff, pre and post game stuff. Let them handle that. Let them do the intermission interviews with the players, but whatever team it is, broadcasting on NBC, have the team broadcasters calling the game,
Hmm.
right? Let the fans get because in the playoffs, people turn on the games and they aren't fans of those teams sometimes. They just want to watch hockey. They want to watch playoff hockey because it's another caliber. Give them that full experience of what it's like to be a fan of this team and possibly bring more fans into the team,
Hmm.
which thereby makes them fans of the league, which earns more money for the league. Like literally, you cannot lose doing this. And it will make already fans of the team even more excited of look, the league and this broadcasting company care enough about my experience watching the playoffs to bring in my guys, and it makes it that much cooler, right?
Hmm.
And you also get to hear your guys geek out that we're in the playoffs.
Yeah,
So
I
yeah,
almost, I
I
almost,
hope that since they've changed the playoff format this time and there are rumblings of like, can we do this again? This is a fun format. My hope is that they might be a little bit more flexible about like the broadcasting, especially with Ronick and oh, what was the guy from 2 weeks ago? Mike something or other.
Milbury.
Yeah, it's like
Hmm.
with those two having their moments, bringing on the team guys who have not had those moments
Yeah.
would be much better.
See, what I almost
Yeah.
wonder if they could do is like, I don't know if you do this on NHL TV or you have like an option on NBC, is like you have your national broadcaster calls, but you also like somehow build in an option like how there is with SAP and like the Spanish audio. You put in
Right.
options for like a radio call, or you have the team
Mhm.
specific one, so that if fans want to, they can either listen to the national people or they can pick their team. So you like,
Right.
instead of having to try
And
to sync up the radio and the
yeah,
broadcast, you have it right there, so it's all
the
already synced.
NHL TV app and then subscription, they have that availability for each game. It's the home and away broadcast and then the radio broadcast, and you can do the video um, in one, and then the radio overlay in another tab, basically. Because I think the last time I tried to do both, my computer just it was my old computer, it just overheated and just shut down.
Mhm.
So now I do it in two tabs. um, but it's really great to have those options, and it also has a multicam option where you can just do the different cameras around the arena so that you can see all the angles of the game. and then overlay, the audio of something else over it. But that's one of the things I love too, especially is like if you're watching your team do something incredible and take the other team to town, winding it back in a commercial and going on the other broadcast to listen to how that team covers it
Mhm.
is really interesting. It's the context of, I mean, it's from literature. You can't read a text in isolation. You have to have it in connection and conversation to everything else, hence having multiple broadcasters.
Right.
But
But yeah.
yeah. It's the year of old white men in 2020 going downhill, which, we've seen with the NBC commentators. So I am all for bring on the local guys.
Oh, for sure.
Josh
Yeah.
and Razor, we love you. Come back.
Yeah.
I mean, they're on the radio still, but come on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
For sure. And it was like I didn't realize it, like, because like I said, I was listening to the radio call, so it was Josh and Razor, but I didn't realize who was it. I think they had AJ Malesko was on the national broadcast. So I want to see more of that. Like I said, I want to see more of these, more diversity in that. I want to see more female broadcasters on there. I want to see more people of color on there. Like Anson Carter is a great mind, and I really wish they would he would maybe be an analyst or a color commentator for the national broadcast. 'Cause I think it'd be really insightful to hear because he always puts a lot of thought into what he says.
And AJ was really great in this series. It was Pierre McGuire that drove me up the wall. And then I feel like there was one more in the booth, or was it just AJ and Pierre for the Dallas games? I think it might have been just the two of them. I mean, for me, it was just like verbally or like audio keeping an ear out for like keywords so that I knew when something was about to happen, right? Especially as
Yeah.
like my screen sensitivity got worse in these last couple of games, where I would literally have to I had both screens going, game and Twitter, and half the time would have to rely on the audio because I literally could not look at the screen without my head just cracking open.
Yeah.
Yeah. Watching the Stars win was really lovely, but then watching them stars themselves into, a couple of losses in a row while your head is, you know, falling to pieces covering the game. Pain.
Yeah.
Pain on multiple levels.
Yeah.
Yeah. My mom texted me during game 6. She's like, "So how are the Stars doing?" And I just responded, "The Stars are starsing hard."
Yeah.
And she's been keeping up on the Stars through me for enough years now that she knows what that phrase means. And she just went, "How far in the hole are they?" And I'm like, "You don't want to
Mm-hmm.
know."
I was just looking off
Yeah.
on a screen because I guess in this Vegas and Vancouver game, one of the officials just got hurt. I don't know what exactly happened, but I was like, I got distracted for a minute. Ooh, puck hit him in like the back of the neck. But anyways, ooh, that's gonna hurt.
Yeah.
It's a little sidetracked, but yeah, I'd like.
Looking to see if I've got anything on. Oh, it's all Stars stuff. The Stars tweeted out a GIF of everyone in the press box losing their marbles when they win. Nil, fist pumping, both hands in the air. Oh, that's
Yeah.
great.
Yeah, that was a pretty good moment. And then my favorite one was, which I changed my profile picture to on Discord, which is Dobby just slapping his stick on the ice after they won and just going like
Yeah.
berserk. I love that. Like I tweet out.
Loved it.
I tweet out afterwards. I go, this is me, like 100% me, like unbridled joy right now. So yeah, it was.
I feel like if you had to pick one Dobby moment to be like your Patronus of like the most you thing, it's that picture of Dobby sitting between Jamie and one of the Buffalo guys. I think it might have been Jack Eichel, where he's on the bench and they're yelling at each other, and Dobby's just sitting there with this serene smile on his face, like just delighted, And I'm just sitting there going, "Yeah, that's me."
That's one of my favorite,
in the middle of the chaos.
Yeah, that's one of my favorite like meme pictures that I've seen. Like someone like did the whole thing where like they twirl it around him and have like a bunch of hearts around him, and like that is like one of my all-time favorite pictures. And yeah, Dobby's just
When that moment happened in the game, all of us were like, we all called it. That's gonna be a meme, and it still is.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like the best thing ever. I think that was the picture that like fully sold my mom on becoming a Dobby fan, because because she had texted me, "Why is the name Dobby trending with the Stars game?" And I had to explain, the nickname and how good he is as a goalie, et cetera, et cetera. And then I was telling her, "Here's some really cute things. about Dobby that you'll like. 'Cause she's like me of like you get hooked on a player or a team through the human interest bit, right? Um, and so I sent her some of the really funny pictures of Dobby and like gifs of him, and I sent her that one, and she went, "I'm in love with him."
Yeah.
So the
Yeah.
chaos stirring might run in the family.
Yeah. Yeah. Anyways, yeah,
Yeah.
that was a
Oh my,
wild
what
series
a
and a wild game.
series, right? Like how do you in game 1, I think they said is most likely gonna be Sunday
Yeah.
for the Western Conference Final?
Yeah, I think they pretty much confirmed
Yikes.
that. So
Just
yeah.
up close with the mic and one tiny little
Yeah,
help.
exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we have tomorrow to prepare. So
Great.
yeah.
I mean, that's kind of like, after the Calgary series, right? They had their off day and then came out firing against Colorado. So maybe tomorrow's an off day and they go to the XFL stadium again and play soccer and frisbee and whatever else
Yeah.
because it clearly worked.
Yeah, I could see them doing that again because I know they did that after I think it was game 4 or 5 or something like that. One of the games in this
Yeah.
series, they went out and visited that stadium again. So we'll see if
I think
that
it was after the
happens.
back to back because it had
Hmm.
been such a stressful week with everything else happening in the world of sports too. I think the guys were like, "We need something lighthearted, please."
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Man, I also did not expect like Philadelphia's been good this year, but I didn't expect them to fight back from a deficit against the Islanders and take it to game 7. That is going to be incredible to watch.
yeah.
So,
I haven't followed that series as much. Like I've sort of been seeing ish on it, but I'm not nearly as well
mhm,
versed as I am with like the Western Conference. So for whatever reason, I don't
right.
couldn't really tell you why, but
And
that's
it's just, like games available, in the background, through years of being a hockey fan. Like, here on the West Coast, we get a lot of the games, but just by nature of the people that I follow on Twitter, a lot of them come from the East Coast, and so they talk about a lot of East Coast hockey. Um, and it was funny. I had multiple people come out of the woodwork on Twitter to like at me when Broussard scored in the last game because he was one of my like Avs guys. I had followed him from the Penguins, like from the Penguins down to Florida to Colorado, which I was really excited about. It's like finally a team I watch that I can do more than just watch Twitter highlights. And then he went to New York, and I'm like, really?
yeah.
But yeah, his goal, like people are retweeting the highlight of it and just at Logan, your boy did the thing. And I'm like, here's the thing. When Broussard and Varlamov were with the Islanders this season and they came to play their first game in the Pepsi Center, it was that homestand when I was there for the stadium game. And so for one of the home games, I did a sign, down at the Avs end for warm up, and Tyson Jost threw me a puck, and I literally just lost it complete like the videos you see on Sportsnet, lost it. um and then for the other game, I went down to the Islanders end and had a sign that was a parody of one of Drake's songs, and it said, "I only love Broussard and Varley, I'm sorry."
Oh my god.
And there were a couple of people with like Broussard signs, but like the Islanders captain came up and like threw his shoulder into the glass dead on my sign like 3 or 4 times and gave me this like shit eating grin like he knew what he was doing, and I just went, "I'm sorry."
Oh, that's
It
great.
was so funny, like just absolutely cracking up of there were like 3 Broussard signs that he picked mine to bump into,
Yeah,
partly because 'cause I'd made it with Islanders colors, so that probably was just an added insult.
probably.
Yeah, it was really nice though seeing like the guys on the ice like recognize it, and then the funny moment of I think it's Beauvillier just standing on one of the pucks, like put his skate on top of a puck and just stood there. And I took a picture and I tagged my Islander friends. Was like, "Hey, Isles fans, is this a normal thing or does he not realize he's standing on a puck?" And they go, "Oh no, that's a pregame ritual." I'm like, hockey
Yeah,
is so weird.
it is. Oh, yeah.
And then, texting my billet kids, who were still at the house at that point because it was February, texting them, really great pictures of Barzell from the warm-ups and being like, former, Seattle Thunderbird Matt Barzell says hi, and them
Hmm.
just responding with a bunch of exclamation points. I'm like, yay.
Oh,
So,
yeah.
yeah. The joy of hockey, like I feel like game 4 kind of, I was just, saying they're covering. I was like, what is the point of this after the week that was? And then watching the Avs storm back and have a serious talking to with Dallas
Hmm.
via winning. It was like, God, hockey's getting fun again. And then just watching all of these things crop up from like the Toronto bubble and like all the cool videos. And then, seeing the teams just have fun in the bubble. It's like, okay, hockey is still fun.
Yeah.
And the players are doing what they can to push for change, which is nice.
Hmm.
So, yeah,
Got
crazy week.
what at least a month more this more because you factor in conference finals and the finals, so that's gonna be 2 more months of this.
Yeah. And at
No,
least
more
it'll be
months.
in one bubble by that
Yeah.
point. They are projecting that the last game, like game 7, if it goes that long, game 7 of the final will be no later than, I think they said, October 2nd.
Hmm.
Because then they said, was it 9 or 7? It's either 7 or 9 days after the last game of the final is when free agency starts, and the draft is scheduled for the 9th and 10th of October. Which, if there is a game 7, that's a week after the
Hmm.
final, so that's like the perfect, kind of that and free agency at once. And when I was doing a Minnesota article last night, I was talking about the state of contracts and the salary cap for Minnesota going into this very odd off season, and kind of what they should be looking for, and just sitting there looking at their cat friendly page, and then closing my laptop, walking away for a minute just to
Yeah.
mentally process, give my eyes the break they need, coming back and opening it and going, nope, still weird.
Yeah.
They are so up a creek without a paddle. Just, it's not even funny. Like, in my article, it's like they need to get rid of at least 5 players to bring in 2 or 3 more Matt Zuccarello type players if they want to make the playoffs and stick in the playoffs. And
Right.
I was just like, how many mad comments am I about to get on this one? Minnesota fans come for me hard on Twitter and in the comments when I write anything for the site. And I'm just sitting here going, this one's not going to be fun.
Yeah.
Yeah. And the second one was like, they're drafting in a good spot. Here's what's available. Here's what people are projecting. They just have to remember to draft calmly and smart. Draft for what they're going to need 2 years down the line when these amount of contracts have rolled off the books and these players are gone, right? Because if they panic with all of the off-season drama and pressure from the season ticket holders and the ownership about how bad they were in the playoffs this year, they could give into that pressure and draft for what they need now, which is everything. But that way lies disaster, because you might not need that same talent in 2-3 years if you've bought the right players.
Hmm.
So, writing, they need to get a goaltender, they need to get a center to replace Koivu and Stahl eventually, and give them those 2 years in the pipeline. That's your best bet. They can't go and buy the whole farm at the draft, right?
Yeah.
So now we wait.
Yeah.
Yeah, it will be an interesting offseason to see. I had talked about that a little bit too, of this is an unusual free agency, an unusual year, and I wonder if that's going to affect guys whose contracts are coming up, of saying, yeah, I could go somewhere else, I'd like a change, but everything is so up in the air right now, especially with next year for sports. If we don't know if fans are going to be back, we don't know, you know, what money issues the league and teams might start running into. So guys might be more hesitant to leave, and teams might be more hesitant to sign a big name player who has great production numbers, instead of their mid-level, midline or mid-pairing guy whose numbers are okay, but he's a sure bet. He's a known entity. You know what you're going to get with him.
Right.
And because how many times have we signed like a big superstar and like a team like Taylor Hall, and just suddenly poof, there goes the production.
Right.
And you're stuck with a contract, you're stuck with a player, and it's too late to go 30-day money back guarantee. Can we send him back?
Yeah.
It's like when Zuccarello broke his arm, and I was just like, can we get a sub in from the team he just came from? Can they send someone comparable while he's healing?
Right.
2.5 periods. And then he came back for the playoffs. Like, that helped, but
Yeah.
they could have used him in the meantime. Yeah.
For sure.
It will be interesting to kind of keep an eye on what happens. And I feel like you and I are going to be definitely making some fun podcasts when the draft and free agency start.
Oh, for sure. For sure. So.
So I'm sitting, recording this, in my bay window, and a friend of ours came over, and he has a camper van that he's been like custom building for months. And so he brought it over so my partner can poke around and help him with some stuff. And friend has this massive black lab, and our neighbors are walking their tiny dog and then their big like hound. And I just watched our friend's dog bound across the grass to go meet them. But I was just like, uh-oh. And it's like, oh no, they're all chill. It's fine.
Yeah.
He's the dumbest, sweetest dog, doesn't have a mean bone in his body, but he can get protective of his dad if he wants to. And I was just like, your dad's a 6'2", like could be a professional like snowboarder and mountain climber. Like, chill.
Yeah,
Your dad's fine.
Yeah, he can hold himself. So.
This is also the same dog that when he comes over and he's in the house, my 11-pound cat backs 100 pounds of black lab into a corner, and the dog makes this tiny whine. Well, my cat sits there innocently and then looks at him and just does one tiny little growl, and he looks like he's going to melt into the floor. It is the funniest thing.
Oh,
yeah. All she has to do is walk in his direction, and he backpedals. Like, he'll go and sit by his dad and give his dad a look out of the corner of his eyes, like, and she'll just be sitting a few feet in front of him, like, what are you going to do? Like, she is horrible.
That's hilarious.
Takes after her mom.
My goodness.
Oh, yeah. Cooper's fine. He's just checking out all the flowers we planted. Aw. I miss gardening. I am looking forward to being able to garden here in a couple of months. Yeah. Finally.
Yeah. All right. Well.
So, do we want to transition to the trivia we planned?
Let's do that. All right.
Yeah, because I know there were other things we wanted to talk about, but I feel like Game 7 in the trivia is a good plan for this episode of just a lot more lighthearted than last week.
Yeah, for sure. Kind of after last week, yeah, definitely something a little more positive. It's definitely worth it. Oh.
Yeah, I literally the last week with how screen sensitive I've been. The only thing I've been watching has been the games I have to cover. So I've been doing a lot of. I was telling you about this before we recorded, but I found a website and a phone app that has all the radio archives from like the 30s to the late 50s. And I listened to a lot of recordings of those shows, when I'd spend weekends with my grandparents. And so I found like my favorite ones. And I literally since my surgery, I've listened to 14 years worth of the Jack Benny Show. I literally have 2 episodes left in the archive for this show that ran a long time.
Wow.
I went through 3 years in the last 10 days because I can't do anything else. So I'm doing that in like, a notebook of Sudoku because I can't do it on my phone. It's just, it's so funny of like how creative you get when you can't look at a screen. So it was a good idea to record this pod after acupuncture because my brain's not trying to kill me at the moment, which is a very good thing. So, yeah.
All right.
Anyway, trivia.
Yeah.
Dylan, do you want to explain the bonkers idea we had?
So, what was it? We thought of 5 questions each?
3 to 5.
3 to 5, yeah. I did 5, so. But it was,
Same.
about, 5 questions on each other's states, and basically we'll have to, like, guess. I didn't mind, like, there's just one answer, so you have to, like, I probably should have done a multiple choice, but I didn't. We'll see. I
was trying to figure out how to phrase mine where it's like that fill in the blank, right? And my brain was still a little bit post acupuncture toast, and I'm like, multiple choice, easier.
Yeah. So we're doing 5 questions each on each other's states, and we'll see how close or how far we are from actually getting each other's right. So
I found some odd, like weird ones for Oregon, which is great.
Yeah, I found some interesting ones for Texas. So that I don't know. If you're native of Texas, you'll probably know this, but if you aren't, then it'll be kind of eye-opening and fun. I have a really good one that I cannot wait to get to. So, do you want to start? Do you want to start, or do you want me to?
I'll do the first one.
Yeah.
All right. How much land does the federal government own in the state of Oregon? And your answer choices are A, 25%, B, 50%, C, 85%, D, a silly amount. So what percentage of land in the state does the federal government own?
I feel like I almost want to say you said 75 was one of the answers.
85.
85. 85 seems too high, but at the same time, I'm like, what is that? I don't know. It seems a little bit more on point than the other answer. So I want to go with 85.
Final answer?
Final answer.
50% actually. Yeah, I thought it was going to be higher because so much of the eastern side of the state is also protected land. So I thought it was 85. When I looked it up, I'm like, really? So we the great thing is, for those listening, the Portland coast is protected. It's not privatized like the East Coast. So it's public access. So that's part of the 50%. You've got all of the national forests and parks and wildlife zones and refuges through the mountain range, in the Cascades. You've got we have like a silly amount of mountains in this state, and a lot of it, the land on them and around them, is part of that. So it's it's different from the East Coast, where it's so densely packed that the further west you get, it's like Texas, right? It's like there's more land, there's more options for that space. And Oregon has such different climate zones. Once you get over the Cascades onto the eastern side, it's arid desert. Whereas on the left side here, between the coast and the Rockies, or the Cascades, it's really lush, fertile rainforest, basically. The Tillamook Forest looks like Dagobah from the Star Wars movies. So yeah, definite swamps. So yeah, 50%.
All right. I guess.
What's your first one for me?
All right, so it is okay. What Texas town renamed themselves after a TV company to get free television? I'll go with I'll give you like. Oh god. I'll give you a few answers. DirecTV, Dish. Oh, do I want to do Frontier? And what's another one? I'll leave you with those three: DirecTV, Dish, or Frontier.
Reason I'm trending towards Dish, because that one's been around quite a while. Frontier isn't as popular over here. Comcast has the market on everything. So I feel like Frontier is a long shot, but Frontier might be more popular in Texas, which the name would make sense too, because so much of that was frontier territory for so long. Frontier? Final answer?
Your first answer is actually right. Dish. So
dang it!
They actually.
As I nearly fall out of my chair.
Yeah. So I think the story was on that. They renamed. It used to be called Clark, Texas. So they renamed themselves to Dish. I think the residents got 10 years of free cable television, basic cable television, and a recorder. So that's what they got out of the deal. So that's why they did that.
Fair.
Yeah,
like,
it's actually
Dish is expensive.
Yeah, it's actually in the county that I live in. So which is funny. I didn't even realize that it was in the county, but yeah.
Oh my god, that is just the wildest thing. I just, God, I love wild facts like that.
Yeah.
Also, I am not losing this game. It's on.
All right. So we're what?
All
0-0
right.
still.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Actually, good point.
Yeah.
All right. Question 2. A coin toss in 1845 decided Portland's name. So the city of Portland. What was the other name option in that coin toss? And your answers are A, North Texas, B, Boston, C, Waxahachie, D, Seacouver.
I feel like I can already take out A and D. I feel like I can
North
already
Texas
take
and Seacouver. Yep.
Yeah.
So you're left with Boston and Waxahachie.
I really want to go with Waxahachie because that's like an hour from me. Just because that's my gut feeling, I'm going to go with that one.
No. Boston. It was Boston. When I saw that, I'm like, really? We almost lived in Boston, Oregon? No, it doesn't sound right.
Yeah, no. Not at all. And then
I was trying to throw in like a couple of like major red herrings, and I thought the Waxahachie one was like Perfect. Glad to know that was a good one. For those not watching the video, I literally was sitting here waiting for him to choose, doing like the finger, like tapping. Excellent look. So that's how this is going. All right.
All right. So I hope this one
Oh for 2.
yeah, I hope this one makes sense. So Texas is home to which city that is also a planet to which there is only one place with this name on Earth? So think of the
So
planets.
this place is the only place on Earth that has that name. It's also the name of a planet.
Yes.
Interesting.
So you have 8 choices. I'm not counting
9.
Pluto. Not
9. Pluto is a planet.
Okay. Not counting
I
this.
remember the pre-declassification days.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So.
I love Neil deGrasse Tyson, but that was like when I went, no, you're wrong.
Yeah.
The littlest planet. You had to take it away.
Yeah.
Okay, so it's the name of a. I feel like for some reason my gut is telling me Neptune because of like the Gulf and the water association. Neptune, the god of the sea. Neptune?
You're gonna hate me for this. It's Earth.
Are you kidding? I just, in my head, immediately discounted that as one of the options. I'm like, okay, so I have 7 technically, and just really?
Yeah, I saw that. I'm like, okay, this is perfect. I have to do this. Like, yeah, the name was in the question. But...
Oh, that's even worse.
Oh, so worth it.
Oh my god. I'm just like the cat's trying to make a break for it out of the master bedroom. I can hear my partner be like, Charlie, and I'm like, where is she?
Yeah. I
For
told
those
that...
watching the video, she's been on the dresser behind me for the last however long we've been recording, like asleep. So she's like, oh look, I can hang out with mom again now that dad's not dying.
Mm-hmm.
I could tell when his fever broke because she came and flopped on my feet and for the first time in like 4 days and like took a nap. It's like, oh, best cat. Earth? Really? Yeah. Sorry, still stuck on that.
Yeah. I told one of my friends last night and she just sent back this emoji like disappointed and she's like, really? I'm like, yeah. But yeah. Anyways.
Wild.
Both 0 for 2.
So for 2. All right. This one is weird, like extra, extra weird. And Portland's kind of the state of weird. Portland's the capital of weird. Oregon is the state of weird. Oregon is home to the largest living organism. It is 2.4 miles wide and is over 1,900 years old. What is it? Your answers are a blue whale in an aquarium, a honey fungus mushroom, a redwood tree, and the kraken that lives at the bottom of Crater Lake, which is the deepest lake in North America. So, like blue whale, a mushroom, a redwood, and a kraken.
I feel like D is the red herring in that, or the one to discount for sure.
Yeah, yes.
I almost want to say the mushroom because it sounds like it. It sounds like there's something weird about that like could make it that big. Because I think a redwood is. There's no way it can get that big. I know redwoods are
unless it like toppled at like the peak of its growth and is like laying on the ground that long, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
So you're down to 2. So it's the blue whale and the honey fungus mushroom.
I want to say the mushroom. Like that's my gut feeling.
Correct. So I was sitting here, I'm like, how is that possible? How have I not seen pictures of this thing? And I went reading on it. BBC did a whole article on this thing. And so mushrooms are like icebergs. What you see above the ground is only a very tiny portion of the actual, like the tubal fungi network, as they call it, underground.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think it was starting in the 70s. These, ecologists and scientists in the Blue Mountains noticed that a ton of trees were dead and dying from mushroom fungi. And so what they did was they started analyzing the fungi, trying to figure out, was it the same mushroom that was killing all of them? And that's how they got the 2.4 miles. It's the amount of trees that it's killed. And it's because there is underground, 2.4 miles of a frigging massive mushroom. And then you see all the little ones above the ground. And they were able to figure out through the what is it, the coding, in the cells and biology, technobabble, whatever, that it's the same mushroom that's killed all of them. They're
Mm-hmm.
not distinct. So this giant 2.4 mile long mushroom lives underground in the Blue Mountains. How freaky is that?
That's weird. I can't fathom that. Like,
Right?
jeez.
The BBC article had pictures of like the ones that are above ground, the little, 10% of the iceberg. And I looked at them like, they look normal. They're cute. And I was like, how much?
Yeah.
Yeah. It was really cool. Like the BBC article explained the process of figuring out that it was one big mushroom. And they said it's at the earliest 1900 years old, at the oldest 8,500 years old.
Hmm.
That is before written record existed. It's just insane. Okay, so you are 1 for 3. I am still in the hole.
All right.
Let's go.
So this one would have been much harder if I decided I'm going to give you like most of the answer, and I'll leave you with one to guess. So Six Flags Over Texas is a theme park, like that the company like has all its theme parks around the country. So Six Flags Over Texas is named after the six flags that were flown over the state. What are they? I'll give you 5 out of the 6. There is Spain.
The Confederate has to be one, right?
Yes, Spain, Mexico, Texas, Confederacy, and the United States. So Texas was a country at one point.
Right.
So you have to guess the 6th.
Mexico?
That was that was one of them. I'd already said that.
Oh, that was
Yeah.
one of them. That's right. Okay, so Spain, Mexico, the U.S., the Confederacy, and and Texas itself.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, what on earth could it?
Here, I'll give you a few countries.
Is it
to
like
choose
the
from.
state flag now? Because like Texas, the country was a long time ago, but I could see the state flag being that one now because every state has a flag. Is it the state flag?
No, it is. No, yeah, because that was. I think that actually was the country flag before it became part of the U.S. So,
Dang.
I'll give you a few countries. There's England, France, Portugal, and what do I want to do for? Okay,
It's
yeah, I'll give you.
Portugal.
Yeah, final answer.
It's Portugal?
Final answer.
Yes.
No, it's France.
Yeah. What were the French doing in Texas?
I forgot when it was. I think it was around the time that they were in charge of Louisiana. That's the only. I don't. It's been a while since I've had Texas history, but that's the only plausible thing that I can. Because back when they had like the whole Louisiana area,
Oh,
that's
right.
the only thing I can think. Like I said, it's been a. I think I did Texas history in 4th
Because
grade.
Texas was part of the Louisiana Purchase, right? Because it was everything west of the Mississippi, and that's west
I think Spain or Mexico had it at that point.
at that point.
Yeah.
Interesting. The French.
Yeah.
Ha ha ha. I just had to do it.
Yeah.
France.
Mm-hmm.
Really? I'm down 0 for 3.
Yeah, because I think
I'm losing. I don't understand the concept of losing.
I think the Spanish and the French fought for the Texas area for quite a while.
That is just wild. I mean, like out of that list, I think France would have been the last one, like behind England, that I would have picked. Right? Like I
Right.
could see Spain giving England Texas before France got their hands on it, right? Because they would just want to like piss off the Americans, and of course give it to the people that they liberated themselves from. But man, I wonder if it was like a gift from ally to ally after the war.
May have
But then
been.
the French had it when they said no.
I don't know. I'll have to look it up after the fact, but
Yeah, that is just, huh? Good lord,
Mhm.
France, French Texas. Now that's a thought. My brain just went French barbecue, and I think I broke myself.
Oh. Yeah, I had another country idea for the question. It's not
Barbecue
included.
escargot.
Yeah, I had another idea for countries that I thought I might have included in this because believe it or not, there's a bunch of like German, like what do I want to call it, German people from Germany that settled here in Texas, but they never like held control of the country. That's why like New Braunfels, who's it? What are some of the other places? A lot
Oh.
of that they speak. There's actually a dialect of German that's Texas German. So
Oh.
yeah, I didn't realize that until I started looking this stuff up. That there's an actual German dialect here. But
So crazy.
yeah,
Like there are so that's three different dialects that Germany has outside of the main one then. They have the Bavarian southern part of the country has their own, and then this little tiny strip of land that Strasbourg sits on, which is French now. Every 20 years for a couple of hundred years, it flipped back and forth
mm-hmm.
between France and Germany. And so the residents just eventually the two languages kind of melded, and to this day, the residents still speak this French German combination that no one else in either country speaks because it's this little area on a river, which is basically the border that back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. It's
Mm-hmm.
like England and it's like France going back and forth between French sovereignty and English sovereignty in the Middle Ages, just like every generation. Okay, we're
Yeah,
flipping. Everyone
right,
turn the flags over.
right.
But there's a Texas German dialect. That's so cool.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Yeah, it's most. I think
I'm the
it's.
nerd that likes languages, even when I get myself into graduate level linguistics courses that make me regret lots of life choices. German's one of my favorite languages,
Mm-hmm.
and definitely makes me cry less over textbooks than Old English and French did. If I never have to take another French class, I'll be happy.
Yeah, I took.
I did enough Old English to be literate for my master's, and that was it.
Yeah,
Like, done. I'm getting
yeah.
out of here.
All right.
But yeah. So, question 3 from me. Or no, wait.
4.
Question 4. All right. Forest Grove has the world's longest barber pole at 72 feet. It eclipses the previous record of 40 feet held by which city in Texas? And you have your options: the DFW area, San Antonio, Boca Raton, Galveston.
Hmm. I feel like I know this one just because with frequency that I've visited the city. My gut feeling is saying San Antonio.
Correct?
Yeah, I've been probably what at least 8th grade through like maybe my junior year of college. I went to San Antonio almost every year, so I was like, I heard that, and I'm like, that's it. It's got to be it.
Yeah, that
Yeah,
would make sense. I was, going through all these, trivia pages and I saw one that had something to do with Texas and I'm like, well, clearly that's going in the list.
yeah,
I didn't know it would be an easy right answer.
yeah. Cause sitting there thinking of Galveston, I'm like, I've been to Galveston like twice, and I don't know that I've heard any of that. So I forgot what the third answer was, but yeah,
And the DFW area, it's like you would have definitely heard of that.
yeah.
Yeah. I'm losing. Come back. I can come back.
Yeah, you still got 2 more chances. This one hopefully will be easier. Hopefully you should get it. So,
All right.
all right. What soda company was founded in Waco, Texas? So
Ooh.
I'll give you Dr. Pepper, Coca-Cola. God, I can't. I don't know. I can't think of any other
And
soda
there's
companies.
Pepsi
Yeah,
and
PepsiCo.
what is it? Henry's something or other, the root beer company.
Yeah, out of those 4.
It's definitely not Pepsi. Um, and I know I've heard the history of like the Dr. Pepper stuff. I'm just trying to remember if it was East Coast or if it was Texas. Um, Coca-Cola can't be it because they have the Coca-Cola Museum in Atlanta, Georgia, and I believe that's also the headquarters. So final answer is what was the other one? I was just like, it's been a
Was
long
that
day.
Henry the root beer?
Dr. Pepper.
Yeah,
Final answer is Dr. Pepper.
that is correct.
I got it.
Yeah.
Yes,
So
finally.
it was developed. I can't remember if it was in like a barber shop or something like that. I can't remember. There's this one like small shop in Waco that had developed it. And actually, they're still headquartered, if I remember right, here in Texas, actually in Frisco. Where is it? It's not that far from the team headquarters for. I want to say it's maybe 2 to 3 miles from the Stars headquarters over near up in North Frisco, about like Central Frisco. So still headquartered in Texas. So Dr. Pepper Snapple Group, actually.
Okay, that's just cool.
Hence why, like, you see all the Star stuff is sponsored by Dr. Pepper, and you see so much Dr. Pepper sponsorship here. So
That explains the connection. That explains a lot.
yeah,
The throne of Dr. Pepper.
yep, exactly.
That explains a lot. I got one.
Mm-hmm.
1 for 4.
If I get this one, wrong, then you can tie it. So
Here's hoping. I feel like this is like the Stars taunting the apps of like, look, you can catch up to us and tie us, but we're still gonna win anyway. To all of my abs friends listening, I'm so sorry. All right. Last question. The world's oldest what was discovered at Fort Rock Cave in 1938? It was 9,000 years old. Your answer combinations are a comb, a leash for a pet, sandals, beer.
Aside from beer, all those seem like very valid choices. I mean,
There is also evidence of ancient beer making. Unfortunately, my partner claims patents on that. Supposedly, I'll cross off the beer one for you, but supposedly the oldest beer making records in the world come from Persia, from ancient Persia. So he's always like, "Yep, we invented beer," and I'm like, that makes a lot of sense actually, with like how good certain spices mix in with beer, and I was just I was like, it's really cool. And I said, if you tell me you invented Riesling wine, I'm out of here though. Like I know that comes from a certain area of Germany and France. Like I've been there. Because it was this moment of like this joke of like him listing all these things of like all the things that the Persians invented, and then clearly some of them were just completely ridiculous. And I told him, if you tell me wine came from Persia, I'm done. White wine specifically.
Yeah.
Anyway.
All right. So the others were.
So comb, pet leash, and sandals are the other 3.
Sandals seems too obvious. I feel like I go way further back than that. I'm gonna take that one out myself, out of my head. So dog leash.
So comb and pet leash.
I want to say pet leash. That my gut feeling says pet leash.
I might have a chance to tie this game. It was sandals. It really was made out of sagebrush and bark. So 9,000 years ago would have been just after the final round of Homo erectus stuck around and survived, not becoming extinct. 9,000 years ago would have been 7,000 BC.
Yeah,
that is just, I have some really snarky thoughts on like dates that I could like allude to, and I'm like, nope, don't go there. You're gonna piss people off doing that. That is like I think the only thing that's older at that point are like fossils and like the cave paintings for like things that actually like organic things that survived that long. You usually find those frozen up in the mountains. Like for them to find it in a cave in Oregon, I can't even imagine the like conditions it took for those and there's a picture of them online. They're really cool. But yeah, sagebrush and bark.
Interesting.
Right? And at least we know that the 2 materials are incredibly durable and long lasting.
Yeah. All right. So 5th one. What city in Texas is home to the world's largest bat colony? San Antonio.
What city in Texas?
Yeah, what city? San Antonio, Austin, Dallas, or Waco. Go along.
It's Austin because they used to have a hockey team called the Austin Ice Bats.
Yep, 100% correct.
Yes.
So
I only know that because one of my best friends found one of their jerseys at like a vintage or like an antique store a couple of years ago, and the logo is absolutely hysterical. It's this hockey playing bat for their logo. I just thought, who named a team Ice Bats? And then we try to figure out what the origin was, and it's because they have a big bat colony. And so you
Mhm.
said that, and I'm like, what was the name on the jersey? What was the name?
Yeah, it's like I don't remember what the peak time of the year is, but yeah, there's like 100. I think I actually want to say it's like thousands of bats. Like there's one bridge. I think it's on Congress Avenue. I don't remember what the river is, but it goes through the south side of Austin. There's a bridge there, and about dusk, just thousands of bats like just escape and fly to go feed. It is it's weird if you think about it, but it is the most insane thing to watch.
Cat?
Uh-oh.
That is my cat on our neighbor's lawn. So for those, whoa, squirm, squirm. So for those not watching the video feed, I am holding a very squirmy fur ball because as we were wrapping up the trivia portion, I'm sitting here in my, bay window that looks onto the front yard, and I see a cat on our neighbor's. All right, you can go now that I've shamed you on a podcast. I, I look over and I see, I'm like, oh, it must be the neighbor's cat that's like kitty corner around the street. And it's, snooping around the driveway of our neighbors. And I look at him like, those are the markings that are on my cat. It's my cat that is an indoor cat. I was just like, we have a harness and a leash, and we'll take her out in the backyard and she'll motor around and is totally fine. But she did not have the harness on, which means that my partner did not intentionally take her out. So I went skittering because I can't run. I can't go get her fast enough. So I went skittering as fast as I could to the back deck and yelled at him and our friend, "Get the cat!" And I go running back to go out through like the front door, and I see the door from the house to the garage is open by about 8 inches.
Mm-hmm.
And they had the garage doors up because they were using power tools and doing work on our gutters. And I was just sitting here going, "Oh, she got out."
That was good.
So our friend is claiming responsibility for not shutting the door properly. But my partner has done that multiple times, thankfully with the doors closed, and she goes and skitters in and like checks out the garage, and I'm sitting here going, I'm still gonna throw my partner under the bus.
Yeah.
That was like a bunch of heart palpitations I did not need.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was funny. Like I made out to the front driveway as he was like basically hurting her back, and she just bolted across the street to our hedges and like bounding through them to the back of the house, and saw me and turned and ran for me, and then passed me to our front door and sat there and looked at me like, I want to go in now.
I've done my exploring for the year.
Yeah, literally. It's like we only ever take her out in the backyard, and so front yard is a whole new world. This is the same cat that when I try to take her on a walk up to the mailbox in a very quiet neighborhood, she flips out. Like she grows 8 legs and like backpedals to the front door. And she somehow was across the street past the mailbox. And I was sitting here going, really?
Yeah.
The most possible chaotic Friday. A hockey game, middle of the day, overtime game 7. My cat gets loose. Like,
Yeah.
Welcome to episode number 4 of Stay Onside.
Yeah.
We're having a time.
Yeah, exactly. All right.
That might be the episode title.
Yeah.
Well, I think that's where we should probably cap it.
Yeah.
We'd finish the trivia anyway. We can do a tiebreaker next week.
Yeah. Think of like 3 more or something like that. I don't know. We'll find something out.
Do the tiebreaker question, but do it on like a round of like music or movies or something, and just continue the ledger like week after week.
Yeah.
I'll be in the hole for like the next 3 months. Yep. I'll have done this comeback to tie it and then just languish.
Yeah, one after another, just yeah. Oh,
time.
Yeah. All right.
Well, that was the episode 4 of that was episode 4.
Yeah.
We've hit the point where I'm incoherent.
Yep, starting to go off the rails. So.
Yep.
All right.
All right, everyone. Have a lovely weekend. We will see you back here next week for episode 5, breaking down the Western Conference final against to be determined Vegas or Vancouver. And enjoy the weekend. and try to get your heart rate under control after a wild game 7 with overtime.
I know mine still hasn't. Yeah.
Mine's pounding now after, like, attempting to run after the cat and going, "Right, I can't.
Yep. All
I'm
right.
good."
All right.
Bye,
Well,
everyone.
bye. Y'all have a good week. Peace.